All right, good afternoon, everybody. I think by the time we get through the roll call and such that Commissioner Peach will be here to chair the meeting, so I'll just go ahead and call it to order, and we'll go ahead and do the, let's go ahead and do the pledge. Councilwoman Hill, would you like to lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you, ma'am. We'll do the roll call.
Okay, so as you mentioned, we're waiting on Santa Rosa County Commissioner Dave Peach, Escambia County Commissioner Robert Bender,
Here.
Santa Rosa County Commissioner Bob Cole, Escambia County Commissioner Doug Underhill. Are you online, sir? I did receive a message today from Commissioner Underhill that he'd be on the Zoom, so hopefully he can pop in. Dan Deely on behalf of Baldwin County Commissioner Joe Davis.
Present.
Mike Norberg on behalf of Okaloosa County.
Here.
City of Pensacola Councilwoman Ann Hill.
Present.
City of Gulf Breeze Councilman J.B. Schluter. City of Milton Councilwoman Shannon Rice. I didn't receive any response from either of those folks, unfortunately. Woody Speed on behalf of the City of Orange Beach.
Present.
Town of Century Mayor Ben Boutwell. So we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and approve the minutes. Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, as this is where I was hoping Commissioner Peach would not walk in. But I'll go ahead and give a little update. Last week was the Florida Association of Counties Policy and Innovation Conference. One of the things that Escambia County put forward that received support from the committee and will ultimately move to getting approved in November to be a legislative policy that we're going to be seeking is to have code enforcement officers also be able to cite derelict vessels. So locally, we've had some issues. The latest one that's pretty visible is the boat that's just off of Pensacola Beach when you drive on. I think it's a boat that's probably floated around the Sound since Hurricane Sally. Somehow with no engines, it made it underneath the Bob Sykes Bridge and over to where it almost sits today. And we were trying to address it before Hurricane Ida came along, and we're not able to. I think we did make contact with, I think the insurance company's now the owner, and all of our efforts, we weren't able to do anything with it until it sank. And so now there's that additional cost that has occurred. You know, we have to go through the grant program with FWC, plus the environmental impacts, everything like that. We had something similar in the mouth of Bayou Tahar with a sailboat that I noticed that it was starting to be in distress in around Christmas time, and it finally sank in the spring and finally got removed, you know, June, July. So hopefully this will help speed up that process and give us an additional tool to address these things that are plaguing our waterways and creating environmental concerns and additional costs. And so, again, Commissioner Cole, I know you're involved in with FAC and everything, and so that's just one thing that we'll be hopefully moving forward and getting the counties to support.
Commissioner, be glad to help you with that any way I can. Years ago, though, Santa Rosa County took care of that by organizing a small group of us called Blackwater Pirates. As long as the serial numbers aren't on them, they got drug up on, mysteriously appeared on county boat ramps, and then it was the problem of Public Works to get them broke up
Okay.
and hauled to the dump, so.
Well,
I don't know how they got there.
I don't wanna know,
Plead the
yeah.
fifth on that.
but, well, and then that was the thing was that, of course, this boat was not in great shape. And I would have loved to have tried to take a dozer to it while it was still right next to the beach. But I think that happened in Miami, and they ended up having to buy a new boat, and this one was not worth buying a new boat over. So look forward to getting that done. I'll just say real quick, does anybody else have any other updates while we?
Just a thought, you might contact the Buffett Company and see if they want to do a reprise of the Dying at Three-Quarter Time album cover while it's sitting out there, and then maybe they'll take it away for you.
Yeah. So, all right, anybody else have anything they'd like to add for the good of the whole? And almost according to plan. Mr. Chairman, we've made it through the approval of the minutes.
Awesome, good job. I'm proud of you. My apologies, I need to remind my scheduler that there is drive time between meetings, so. Find my eyes.
So just so everyone's on the, working from the same playbook, we did have a guest speaker scheduled. They were unable to make it, Roberta Swan from the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. I did have an opportunity to present to their executive committee earlier, I guess late August, mid to late August, which was well received. They have a good group over there. They're doing a lot of good work, and it was great to learn more about what they were up to and also see how their meetings proceed. We've gone back and forth, Roberta and I, with different versions of a memorandum of understanding between the two groups. And I've also met with Baldwin County Commissioner Davis and Gruber and discussed the overlap that we've discussed previously. And so Roberta and I continue to work on that, and we'll get an update to you as quickly as possible. She is planning to present at the December 1st meeting, so I hope at that time as well we'll be able to bring forward an MOU draft that you know, both boards are ready to sign. But so far, it's been very constructive, and disappointed that Roberta couldn't be here today, and she sends her regrets.
Okay, so are we into staff updates? Okay. Over to you, Donald.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. The, just from last month's meetings, minutes, pardon me, did receive an email from me. The Escambia County Board, the Board of County Commissioners did approve the office lease. Comes into effect on October 1st. The staff we're all working now to secure office furniture, which is turning into, there's actually quite a bit of backlog in office furniture right now. We're being told it's a lead time likely of 8 to 10 weeks. So we're working with Staples to get as much of that through Escambia County as possible in one order. So we're working with their team, and so we may not be in the office space until we have furniture, but we've secured it, and we're very pleased about that, and we're working to get into it as expediently as possible. So very pleased about that. With the financial update, we have a few things with finances today. So you have a spreadsheet that you've seen now at each meeting where the annual finances are updated, but as well later we'll approve an annual budget, which is prescribed in the organizational's bylaws to make sure we get that done. So the financial update is, again, the EPA grant, current as of September 17th, so just one pay period left in the fiscal year. The narrative all year has been that we're underspending. That continues to be the case. Underspent by probably end up being around $140,000 in human resources. As you all know, we've worked to amend that agreement and the EPA will begin considering amendments. They're not currently considering amendments. They will begin considering amendments at the beginning of the fiscal year, so next week. And we hope that ours will be considered and, obviously hope it's approved, but can't be certain until it's done. But we hope that we'll be able to take this surplus, and of course, that's all been considered, and wrap it into the grant, as you all know. And so that's been forwarded, and we hope that that'll be approved. So that's the financial update. We've completed the fiscal year for the most part. Again, this was done, there was still one pay period left, but fairly accurate, and look forward to getting that on track in next fiscal year. Any questions on the financial update?
Yeah, not so much on this financial update, but, we all just went through our budgets and everything and got those passed. This grant runs out next January, correct?
End of December 2022.
So in just over a year from now.
Yes.
If we could, in the next meeting, what's our plan for January 1st?
Yes, 2023.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To include all the options. I mean, I know we're banking on
Certainly.
designations and things, but I think we need to start now looking at, okay, when this EPA grant runs out, what it is, because if we're going to rely on local governments or anything,
Absolutely.
you're going to have to get in that pot early. And I'd hate to be sitting here next year after our budgets are approved going, darn.
Yes. Certainly, and it's, I'm glad to hear you say that. It was my intention to raise that when we discussed the annual budget.
Okay.
You'll see we have $1.5 million in revenue this year, but we do have to be very proactive now over the next 15 months to be sure that we have sustainable funding. So I think we should have a robust conversation about that this afternoon, actually.
Okay.
And keep it moving through the next meeting for sure.
And then in that, and we'll probably get to it, but what does it cost us to run for a year?
Yes.
On bare bones and where we want to be. I think we need to look at all those goals.
Certainly.
What is it just to keep the lights on, basically. So I look forward to that conversation.
Good. Yes, me too. Definitely. Great to hear you say that. Any other questions on the financial update? Yes, Dan.
What's the status on the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee hasn't met as of yet. I was actually going to suggest that when we discuss transition planning, that the Finance Committee could be wrapped into the Finance Committee, but reached out to people who were interested. We haven't been able to come up with a date yet that works for everyone. But we have had Commissioner Bender, Commissioner Peach, and Mr. Speed agree to serve on the Finance Committee, and was still hopeful that you'd be able to participate as well.
Give me a date, I'm good anytime.
Okay, great. Okay, good. The next is the Human Resources update. Whitney and I interviewed 4 candidates for the environmental scientist position on September 15th. All very high caliber candidates, very pleased with the candidates. We are working to secure our preferred candidate, and can't say much more than that at this point, but hope to get that finalized and be able to pass along that update, likely via email now, between now and the next meeting. Hope to have that done really by the end of this week, but just missed it, unfortunately. Logan and I will be interviewing community outreach assistant candidates on Monday, October 4th. So good progress on both those positions. And again, very happy with the caliber of candidates for both positions. So that's where we're at with that. Our volunteer coordinator, Emerson, who was wonderful this summer, is now back on part-time as well, just as an update. So that's where we're at with human resources.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
what was that second candidate position?
The community outreach assistant position,
Okay, thank you.
my pleasure.
And then, we talked about it last time, but if you could refresh my memory, the deputy
Yes,
position.
the deputy position is funded by the updated EPA grant. So we've been drafting the position description, and we'll be ready to move on that. And we don't necessarily need to wait on the approval of the amendment to begin the process with Escambia County, but their first question is going to be, how do you intend to pay for this? So just that's definitely the next one in the pipeline, though.
Okay, because I was working with our grant folks last week in Santa Rosa County, and they enlightened me that we actually have something where if it's a grant-funded position, it doesn't have to normally go through the process. So I did a little digging with Escambia County and their human resources policy, and they actually have a section that talks about grant-funded appointments and not having to necessarily follow the
Well-
procedures, so.
And I've been advised of that, Commissioner Peach, to be honest, that there was that would be possible. And I did ask Human Resources about that, not just for the deputy director, but also to expedite the last two positions. And the Human Resources staff didn't necessarily agree with that interpretation of it, but so I don't know what to say other than that. And then that's not the first time I've heard that, but I haven't had much luck in being able to push positions forward using that.
Okay, well, I know if.
I'll push again, though.
Well, but I mean, I know if our human resources folks disagree with them, they typically come to the board or the attorney for an interpretation, so
Okay.
someone's always got a boss, is what I'm saying. So, and I think we got a couple of them sitting up here, but it's 16.5 of their thing, very similar to our Santa Rosa County thing, so, I mean, not trying to undercut my brother in here in Escambia County, but if there's a way to get it done and get it done quicker, I'm all for it. So if you could look into that, I would appreciate it very much. Thank you. And not just you. He knows.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
would that entail not having to go through human resources or an outsourcing or bid, or not a bid, but putting it out or researching it for
Yeah,
a candidate, we can make a choice from the board?
It definitely says it'd be an appointment, so my interpretation, I'll share this with you if you
Thank
want, Commissioner Cole.
Well, I think you're-
Appointment's different than a hire, I think.
Right.
I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm not aware.
Good, thank you. I think everybody on the board knows my feelings on that, so, thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass it over to Whitney for the technical update.
I have some visuals for you, so I'm just not talking at you. Thanks, Emerson. So I will skip some of the technical committee type updates for Jessica to come in later, but wanted to kind of give an update on the action plan feedback we've been getting from participants. We had close to 35 folks from our community and our partners fill out our survey that we sent out on our 6 goals that are part of our action plan. This allowed for specific feedback on agree, disagree, specific partners that they wanted to see added, implementation strategies, objectives, actions, et cetera. So we have been working through edits from that. It was a lot of feedback. It's a huge spreadsheet that Amanda Croteau has kindly organized for us, and we were able to make columns to add, go line by line. So I was able to actually reference every single comment and make notes on those. So step 1 was really compiling it all, organizing all the feedback to make sure we didn't miss anyone's feedback. Made columns for us to make comments and any clarifications for confusion on certain things. And then I went through, of course, line by line, addressing each comment or suggestion and putting, a comment on each. So were they just simple wording changes? Was it just a note? Some people were just in general agreement with, this is a great goal. And then clarifying anything that was an issue, editing certain things if we didn't need to edit, those types of things. And then decided, through all of that, what's the overall resolution for the comments. So some were a little bit hairier to deal with than others. Some people took a lot of thoughtful time to give general feedback, so kind of just digesting all of that and synthesizing it. And then that will all go into another draft of the action plan. So we're close to doing that. And Jessica will kind of give an update on what kind of discussion we had at the technical committee Next slide. So this is a picture of me. Of course, I don't have red hair, but of course, it's like been quite the process going through all of this, but it's been really exciting to kind of get to this part. So really, these are kind of the main, I kind of categorized the feedback that we got. Kind of some of them were overlapping, so I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what kind of comments we were getting. A lot of them, of course, adding themselves as partners, which is great. Other potential funding sources that we can use to implement some of these actions. Specifically, a lot came up in terms of identifying our role of the program. You know, what role are we going to play in these actions? Are we going to be a collaborator? Are we going to be a leader? Are we going to be a facilitator? Those types of things. So I went through and identified each one of those to give more clarity. Some of them, you know, didn't need to be standalone actions. Some combining happened with actions that were very similar that dealt with the same thing that kind of gave to the same outcome. Performance metrics was really helpful. We had a discussion at the meeting about some of those specific performance metrics. Clarifications, like I said before, our resiliency goal is going to take some updating. A lot of people had great feedback on how we can make this more implementable and how we can kind of tap into existing efforts. And then timeline restructuring and kind of coming up with a Gantt chart to kind of put all of this in one place. There's a lot to put on there, but it would be good for us to know kind of what timelines we're working with each of these actions. How long are these projects going to take? Those kinds of things. So we're going to be working towards that as well. And then kind of just a general progress update. We've made tremendous progress on action plan narratives around each objective. The technical characterization of the watersheds is up and running as well, and doing our early action project write-ups. So we have a lot, of course, that are on the ground now that are really exciting. So we're working to get those written up, the purpose of them, you know, what the outcomes have been. So our community grant program, our intensifications for our EPA surveys that we did this summer, our oyster mapping effort, Trash Through Waters, and our new grant that I will talk about on the next slide, I believe. Yes. Great cue. So recently we were, Aaron Cox from University of New Orleans reached out to us a few months back now. This has been a while. And we actually were successful in getting a grant from the NOAA Actionable Science Grant Program. So this is actually a planning grant, so this is kind of step one of step two. So you basically have the money now to plan, and then come next August, we'll be applying for implementation funding as well. So the title of the project is Building Resilience into Seagrass Bed Restoration, the Role of Genetic Variation. So really the proposed project will devise a plan to assist in the management decision on how to restore seagrass in the Pensacola and Perdido Bay systems, in the most resilient way to climate stress and other stressors in the environment. So we'll have an advisory committee made up of state managers and other communities of practice and other partners that we've identified. And it will also include a literature review of genotypic variation and resiliency, what data we have up to this point on seagrass health and condition in our watersheds. And we will also be having a workshop with stakeholders and trying to help decision makers have the most accurate information to make a plan moving forward. So all this will be rolled into our CCMP as well. So we're excited about that. So that actually started September 1st and will end next August. So it's only a year to get all this planning done. So we've hit the ground running. We have been building a survey to give to natural resource managers and community members, kind of getting a gauge on, you know, what are the gaps, what is more information that a resource manager would need to make decisions. So we're working on that now. The second one is partnership with Renee Collini. This partnership started before I was here, but we've had further conversations about that project. So it will involve community engagement, using sea level rise education that spans, you know, ages, locations, and demographics to aid in better prepared communities along the Northern Gulf. It's a fantastic proposal. I will make sure that that's available to you all so you can read more about it. We hope to have a combination of community dialogue sessions, pop-ins to different areas along the watersheds, and doing, of course, building that educational program for sea level rise and for decision makers. So this will be a really big step in, getting this information across to the people that need it to make decisions. So that's another one. And then the last, we've been working with Chris Anderson from Auburn University to plan a workshop for stakeholders as well. He is leading a project dealing with land use change in our watershed, specifically Perdido, Wolf Bay, and then they hope to include Pensacola Bay system as well. But this project really seeks to understand how climate and various socioeconomic factors may change forest landowner decisions and ultimately reduce forest cover along the Gulf, and how this may affect water quality and quantity in our estuaries. So looking at, stormwater runoff and other factors. So that's already coming up in mid-October. So we'll help him lead that, but that will be mostly his project leads, and we will discuss how it can be incorporated into our management plan. So kind of linking it all back. Thought it was great that we were able to connect with him, and hopefully this data will be very useful to us. Any questions, Mike?
So the no actionable science, you mentioned the timeline for this planning phase of funding. What's the execution phase? Like, when does that go out for proposal or funding opportunities?
They said that would be about 2/3 of the way through, so probably next summer. We're already looking at applying for the next round. Just because we were funded this time doesn't necessarily mean that we'll get the next round, but hopefully we'll be competitive. They didn't really give out that many awards this year, so we were excited to see that we were chosen. Of course, I'll keep you guys up to date on that, but I think it'll probably be next summer, early next summer. And I'm not sure exactly how long that funding is. I think it might be 2 to 3 years for the next round.
Okay, thanks, Whitney. Outreach, over to Logan.
Thanks. So as everyone knows, last week was National Estuaries Week, a nationwide celebration of our estuaries. Along with our partners, we put on a robust calendar of events all week long. There were cleanups for National Coastal Cleanup and National Public Lands Day with our partners. And then I wanted to highlight some of the programs that we facilitated throughout the week. Last Monday, we were lucky enough to have the Nature Conservancy and leaders on the East Bay Oyster Habitat Restoration Project come and give us a virtual tour. So I know some of you were on that call and got to hear all the great work they're doing and see some of the great footage from that project going in. So we had over 65 participants on the call. We're really excited about that. It was also streamed live on our Facebook, and we've had several other 100 folks tune in virtually as well on that platform. Next slide.
And you say that video's out, because I've been talking about it in my town halls and things, and people want to see that, so I could just steer them to the Facebook page to watch that, the exact presentation we got.
Yes, it's recorded live on our Facebook, and I can also send out the direct link for the Zoom
Yeah, if you would
recording
send that
after.
to me, I'd appreciate it.
And then a big part of National Estuaries Week is really getting folks out into the estuaries, making sure they have the opportunity to explore and see what's so great about these environments. So we were very lucky to partner with the City of Pensacola Parks and Recreation's wonderful Paul Pipes, and we were able to offer a free kayak tour in Indian Bayou. And we also had a number of folks bring their own paddlecraft out and join us, and we had over 30 folks on us with us on that tour. And then we had on Wednesday a trip around the Perdido Islands with folks from the Nature Conservancy and Moffett and Nickel that are leading the Lower Perdido Islands management plan. And they were able to share a lot of the public input from their recent survey with participants on the paddle. And we were also able to provide free spots thanks to the City of Orange Beach Coastal Resources. They brought out all their gear, had their boats out, and really facilitated a great trip for folks to be out in the water. And then over the last weekend, I'm sure you know, is the Pensacola Seafood Festival, very busy downtown. We were tabling there all weekend. We were joined by the National Wildlife Federation with their folks doing manatee outreach as well. And we had over 150 people sign up for our newsletter over the weekend. So we had a lot of great interactions with folks. And then I should mention that National Estuaries Week was also covered by WUWF through an interview, and it was on their website as well. So we're very excited about that. Next slide. And then to wrap up National Estuaries Week, we had an oyster tour at the Pensacola Bay Ferry just on Sunday. And we had some great folks from the aquaculture industry, restoration specialists, all come out and share their experience and knowledge to folks that wanted to learn more about oysters. And we were able to go over to the Garcon Point area and actually point out some of the farms in our areas. They could learn how they're raised, why oysters are important, where they can even buy local oysters from our aquaculture farms. And the highlight was probably that we had some dolphins come up really close to the boat as well. So aside from wonderful oysters, they also got to see a beautiful sunset and again get out and see the estuaries. So overall, we were very pleased with the feedback we got from all of the events. We had great participation. We had over 70 people on the oyster tour, and we're looking forward to more public engagement moving forward. One more. So this was also part of National Estuaries Week last Thursday. We held our community grant symposium. So this symposium, we heard from all of our recipients, most of our recipients from our last cycle that were able to attend, and they were able to have the opportunity to share the work they did with the public. And then we also were very excited to announce our new award winners that the policy board approved at our last meeting. And the community grant program, keep an eye out, is going to be featured in next month's In Weekly issue. And we were also featured on WAR's morning show just Tuesday, so yesterday. And Emerson's going to come out and give us an update on trash-free waters. He's running the show in the back for us today.
Mr. Chairman.
Emerson. Looking sharp there, young man.
Oh, thank you. Calling to the bullpen. Okay, it's wonderful to see all of you. Good afternoon. I'm giving a brief update on the Trash Free Waters project. Staff and partners are really excited. We've really hit the ground running on this project, and it's moving full steam ahead. As you guys know, we had the Jones Creek initial cleanup on July 31st, where we also installed litter boom devices in Jones Creek and Carpenter Creek. So we have been monitoring those boom systems since their install on July 31st. We've been monitoring them biweekly on an alternating basis with volunteers. So we've had a lot of support from different folks in the community coming out with us and learning how to use the ETAP protocol, and just generally, learning a little bit more about watershed dynamics and how, litter on the surface of impervious surfaces makes its way into the creeks. So that's been really exciting. I did want to give a couple brief updates, just dates to look out for. We're hosting the large-scale cleanup for Pond Creek on October 9th. That's going to be staged at Mayo Park, where we are partnering with Santa Rosa County, Sea Grant, the Blackwater Pirates, the Baghdad Waterfronts Partnership, and a number of other folks to conduct a land-based and waterway-based cleanup. So we're really, really excited for that one. And then we are also in the planning phase of a cleanup for Carpenter Creek on November 6th. So once those large-scale events are complete, we'll really be, just moving right along on and actively engaging in all three waterways that are targeted by the Trash Free Waters project. So yeah, we're really excited about all of these things happening. The project is coming to fruition. So yeah, I think that covers it. Does anybody have any questions?
So we may or may not be putting a face to the name of the Blackwater Pirates. Is that what you're saying?
You may have one here in his hat out there helping you since it's up in his district, but I won't dime him out. You're welcome, Commissioner Cole. No, I actually brought this up in our meeting, were you there still, Bob? Yesterday, and challenged one of our biggest watershed proponents up there to max out the amount of people he could get out there to help you all out on Pond Creek.
That's great. Yeah, we're really excited. We have gotten a lot of good support from the Pirates and Baghdad Waterfronts, and unfortunately, October 9th is the date of the two high schools' homecoming dance. So, we're trying to get high school students out there, but there is quite a bit of interest from some educators over in Santa Rosa County getting engaged in more of that continuous monitoring program. So just on all fronts, we're really excited about where this thing is going.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
if we could too, reach out to Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful on this program.
Sure.
But that's also the same day that the historic Milton Depot is having a kind of like Depot Days. And also the Jones House is having Monarch Madness. So it's going to be a busy day around Milton.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
Do you have any numbers on the amount of trash poundage-wise or other that you all have collected thus far in the program?
Sure.
What might
So,
that be?
so far we've collected over 1,000 pounds of trash. That is out of Jones Creek, just Jones Creek. One of the major components of the project is using EPA's escape trash assessment protocol to enumerate the trash that we're finding, actually collecting at those litter capture devices. So Jones Creek is the only creek so far that we've had really large events for. We've actually held 2 cleanups there, with one event having 47 volunteers, another event having about 15 volunteers from Ocean Hour. So at Jones Creek, we've picked up over 1,000 pounds of trash so far.
And that's over what amount of time?
Since July 31st.
That's a lot of trash. Half a ton, a lot of trash. Commissioner Bennett?
Thank you. I was going to say, I appreciate Carpenter Creek being included in that. I try to do some of those cleanups when I can, but that's a great group that gets in there and cleans out those waterways and really along the banks.
Mm-hmm.
I know I did the headwaters a couple of years ago. You'd be surprised what you find in the bottom of ponds next to roads. But I do know that's also the weekend that we're going to have the Blue Angel show out on the beach. So I don't know if I can make this one, but appreciate you guys
Sure.
doing that, because we've seen the impact that it's had on Bayou Tahar. So.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Bender. And we are really excited. I'm glad you brought that up, because we are going to be working with Emerald Coast Keeper in the city of Pensacola to do that Carpenter Creek cleanup. So that'll also be, another good example of getting our partners engaged on this effort and making a big impact. So
Do you know where along the creek you're going to be meeting?
So we haven't settled. Carpenter Creek is obviously a little bit challenging due to accessibility. So we're still kind of navigating that part, but we'll be finalizing where exactly we're going to be staging the cleanup and what extent we're going to be focusing on in the next week or so.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for Emerson? Comments? Go ahead.
It's not for Emerson, but I didn't get a chance to participate in much of the National Estuaries Week events. But I did go to the Community Grant Symposium, and I really wanted to give staff a shout out. They did a great job putting that together, and there was a lot of positive feedback from folks that I talked to. It was a full house, so they did a great job with that.
Yeah, that's great. We were working budgets and silly things like that. Planning and zoning meetings, but great job, Emerson. And
Thanks, folks.
Look forward to it. Let us
Yes,
know
sir.
how we can help you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. All right. Is that good for the outreach, Logan? I got the head nod there. So we will move into discussion items. Over to you, Don.
Yes, I received these from a member of the board, from Commissioner Cole, and we've got 4 of them, and we'll make our way through them. Commissioner Cole, I'm not sure if you want to lead the discussion on it, but the first is an issue that I know is important to Commissioner Cole. He's mentioned it many times. It's the inclusion of Blackwater in our branding. And I think this came out of our recent branding that we went through and wanting to revisit that conversation. So I'll hand it over to you, Commissioner Cole.
Yeah, I think since day one, I've asked for this to be included, and, you know, it comes right down to, you know, reality and visibility. For no other reason, I think it makes it more visible to capture more of the geographic area that's defined in the original intent of the program for our citizens. If Commissioner Peach or myself are putting in budget items to help promote this program, it's not real obvious to all our citizens that, you know, what is included when we talk about Pensacola and Perdido Bay. We all know up here that half of Pensacola Bay is Santa Rosa County. But when you don't include a big bay like Blackwater, you start getting a little pushback from some of the citizens when we're looking at funding. And I've pretty much said this from day one, that I thought it should be included. To me, it's something as easy as adding a B, but I know it's not that simple. I know we'd have to probably provide an explanation to DEP and certainly to our senators and congressmen that are trying to push for us to become a national estuary program. But I think they would also realize the reality of the visibility, you know, for our citizens in Santa Rosa County to make it inclusive to name Blackwater Bay in that. And I'll kind of just leave it at that. It's just the way I felt all along, and something I'd like to see us consider. And if nothing else, at least reach out to DEP and reach out to our senators and see if this would throw a big monkey wrench in everything, or if it's just a good expectation to make that request. Of course, I'm only one member of this board, so I'll throw it out there for the rest of y'all.
No, I mean, not just because I'm from Santa Rosa County, but, you know, we don't know if we don't ask. You know, will it screw up the grant? Is it a rehash? You know, can we slide a B in? And if they say no, then we at least know. But, you know, since I've only been on, I wasn't here at the start of it, like Commissioner Cole was, but, you know, if there's an appetite from this board, I think, you know, there's probably an appetite from at least two of us up here to at least even ask the question. And if it's no, then it's no, and we move on. And if it's yes, then, you know, we can nug through it. But I think I'd be happy to send a note, you know, if you guys draft up a note as the current chairman and go, hey, if we add another bay in here, is this going to screw things up? Please let me know, Dave Peach. You know, to me, it's that simple to at least ask the question, and that way we could scratch that itch, you know, one way or another. So, I mean, it'd be up to the will of the board to ask the powers that be if you entertain it or not.
And Commissioner, it's not, or Commissioner Peach, if I might, it doesn't expand the area. It just more defines the area to me. So.
Exactly. Commissioner Bender?
Sure. I definitely think it's worth asking the question. I'm also curious, because it's already a mouthful. And I'm curious what the temperature would be if we explored some sort of collective for the entire region, our estuary. Instead of throwing more to say, like something like Emerald Coast or something like that, that would still cover our territory, but maybe something to consider in the future. You know, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion. If anybody, I mean, that's just a thought. You know, I don't really have any other suggestions. But they're smarter people than me that can come up with that stuff. So.
Real quick, Robert, if you want. P2B2EP. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, you know, of course, as Commissioner Cole said, it doesn't change the footprint of where we're operating. And if it helps, helps get that part of the community on board, then I think it's definitely something worth looking into. I guess I like not just the way it is, but in that it does specifically say Pensacola, Perdido Bay, and if it included Blackwater, it included Blackwater. Yeah, I mean, it lets you know what you're talking about. On the other hand, TPO, Florida, Alabama, TPO. I mean, I think we need to show some difference to our South Alabama folks over there, and so if we wanted to try to do the, Florida, Alabama estuary program, I don't know if that's going too broad, but it's of course we know, like Pensacola Bay, it shares its border with Santa Rosa County. Perdido Bay shares its border with Baldwin County. So I think as we transition, or we want to take a look and see what, I don't know if the grant program would frown upon us just totally pivoting in our name. But the mission and again, this is, the first we've gone in depth like this, and we're looking for feedback. We're looking for feedback from stakeholders. We're looking for feedback from the grant managers, just to see and to make sure that what we're doing is inclusive in our name.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing it, to me, the first step is to ask Mom, the one paying the tab, what it would mess up, the EPA and the grant. If we redefine the name, is that a problem? Does it cause them any grief? And then, the national piece, our delegation, legislative delegation. So I think that's the first hurdle before we start coming up with names, and then we could draw on, the inclusive part.
And sorry, just real quick,
Yep.
do we clear our immediate hurdles and then address this? Do we hopefully get included in the estuary program and then change it a little bit? That way we aren't making it more confusing for what we're advocating for right now. So
I think that could be part of the question. If it is possible, do you recommend waiting, or does it cause any grief? I think it's an easy question. Go ahead. Bob?
I'll make you all promise, after 14 more months, I won't mention anymore.
Oh, no, you're going to be leading one of our committees.
No, if it gets shot down, I won't mention anymore.
Go ahead.
I think at this level, a part of our preparation would be, one, do we want that? Okay, EPA should come back to us and turn it right back on us. Do we want this? So we'll have to answer that question. Number two, what is our investment in everything we have already with the name, logo, et cetera, and are we willing to use our monies or grant monies to make all the necessary changes to documents, logos, websites, et cetera, that we've already had go out there? We need to know what that kind of number would be so that we can factor that into our budgetary thinking, because that will be a part of our answer that says, do we want to do this, and what is the level of investment we're willing to make in order to do that? So that's my thought.
So, and I can do some homework on this too. So Choctawhatchee Bay, I know recently had some conversations about changing their name from Choctawhatchee Bay Estuary Coalition to Estuary Program. So I can do some digging with Brian Underwood and see what kind of information they found through that process.
That'd be great. So is there a will of the board to have the staff?
Can I just say a few
Yeah,
things
go
before we go any further? Is that the the bay systems are well defined by the Northwest Florida Water Management District. The swim plans are based on those bays. We have Senate legislation in the U.S. Senate that is working on getting Pensacola and Perdido Bay designated as estuaries of national importance. So I echo the concern of doing anything to disrupt that. And also certainly internally from a strategic position of the staff, our goal has been to get the name shorter. And we've really worked around that, trying to come up with a way to shorten it. To Mr. Speed's point, didn't really come up with anything that we could get behind. We did invest a small amount of money with our branding contract to have them consider the idea as well. And we kind of ended up back at this name. If we add Blackwater's, it's just one letter for sure, but when you spell it out, you know, it ends up adding to an already pretty difficult name for our stakeholders to handle. And we continue to work to make ourselves known in Santa Rosa counties to try and overcome this issue of representation in a more organic manner. So I wouldn't say that there's great enthusiasm from the staff, but of course, we take our direction as it's given.
Okay. Well, I know we went through the name change with the regional council, with the DPL, Emerald Coast Regional Council. So I personally, and I'm just one up here, I don't think it hurts to start asking those big questions, because, you know, we have to ask the EPA and we have to ask our legislature at least. And if they go, hey, just hang on, you know, we'll work with you, but we got this working, and I think that's a possible answer we get back. Yeah, and we could put the brakes on it. So I think we maybe just at least do some high-level asking. And, you know, you guys want me to, I'll sign the letter out, or Donald could sign it out as the executive director, and at least just pose that question. Hey, it was kicked around in our meeting, what do you think? And they may come back and go, don't even go there. And that would be what we need to hear, I think, in that way. Robert?
Chairman, I would make the motion then to allow you to sign a letter, and also allowing staff to seek information on a possible name change, and determine best course of action.
I'll second that with a question.
Okay. Discussion.
Donald said something that concerned me. He said staff was looking at ways to shorten that. Were you given direction by this board to look at ways to shorten the name?
Not directly, no. But when we had our contract active with our branding company, we ended up with a little bit of money, and one of the options was to have them look at our name. And so we decided to have them do
I
that.
think something in the future, something that significant you ought to have direction from this board before you do something like that. Because if you come back and all of a sudden this logo was changed, I think I'd have a tendency to be a little pissed off, just to put it
Certainly,
mildly.
yes, sir.
Mildly. I mean, it's, and just to add to that, I don't see where Pensacola, Perdido, Blackwater Bay is any more of a mouthful than, I mean, the way I looked at my business when I opened it 38 years ago, I called it Bob Cole's Automotive, Import Automotive Professionals. And somebody said, well, why don't you just call it Bob Cole IAP? I said, because the cost in the yellow pages is the same whether I put all them words in there or just some initials. So, you know, for people to hear that, and okay, I can relate to the Blackwater part, and I can relate to the Perdido part, and I can relate to the Pensacola part. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification on your concern, I believe there was some feedback that you received during the branding exercises regarding the name and the mouthful and those kinds of things. So there was justification in when we had that exercise going with that contractor, that hey, is there a way, if this is a concern and feedback that you're getting, to what's the possibilities? So just to let you know, they didn't just jump out there. They had received feedback.
Certainly wouldn't change the name without coming to the board, seeing what you thought about it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to do high-level investigation of a potential name change. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All righty.
Okay, next one, again, all these are brought by Commissioner Cole. Wanted to explore the plan for, or the opportunity to become independent from Escambia County. So it has come up at the last few meetings. Commissioner Cole, I'm not sure if there's anything you'd like to say on the topic?
Where are we at with that, and how soon can we make that effective?
Okay, certainly my recommendation would be to aim for the end of the EPA grant as they hold those funds. And from my perspective, it's be difficult for us to facilitate that grant if we were a separate entity, but I think there's lots we can do. And doesn't mean that we couldn't raise funds on our own between now and then if we take the necessary steps. I did provide you with some objectives that I think we'll need to meet and a timeline in which we should meet them in order to ensure that we're ready to go out on our own on December 1st, 2022. So certainly the immediate needs are plan for what type of legal status that the board would like to pursue, and we can present you with some options at the December 1 meeting. As well, the current interlocal agreement will expire in February of 2022, which is quite soon. So again, we'll need to begin preparing your various governments for approval of a renewal to that. And then once those things are done, some of the more nuts and bolts, the organization, from my perspective, will need policies and procedures, its own bank account, ability to, an accounting software, its own insurance policies, and then, it's going to need financial oversight with an auditor. So those would be the pieces that I see necessary between now and December, and I do have a schedule there in which I think we can achieve those things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just a quick, so the left column is when it's going to be complete or when we're going to work that?
Yeah, that would be when I'd like to have it completed by.
Okay. Because as you know, government moves like mud,
Yes.
and getting interlocal agreements and things through, with our budget cycles and things. So, typically I like our staff to work things, contracts and things like that at least a year out, because you never know what hurdles you're going to hit. So, just like the interlocal agreements, fall time in county governments kind of slows down and around Christmas time and that, and then the budgets kick off. So, maybe put some more dates and times to some of these key things where it's going to require several different government entities to approve those processes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, Don, since I have to take this back, on that left column, and you said that this is when you want it complete by, on reviewing the interlocal agreement and drafting the legal status strategy, you want that complete by the end of winter 2022?
Yeah, that's right, which
is
in
not this winter, but
No,
next winter.
No, for me, autumn 2021 runs from October till December, and then winter 2022 is January till the end of March.
Okay, thank you.
My
We're
pleasure.
not used to having 4 seasons down here.
Yeah, I'm thinking wintertime is like December, so, thank you.
I lived in Alaska. It's December 21st, first day of winter. I would just look at those dates, because like I said, if that interlocal expires, does that put us in any Dutch if we don't have a current interlocal? And I would back that up probably at least 6 to 9 months minimum to start getting those drafts and things through.
We're almost there.
Yeah,
I think,
so basically,
and
we're starting
technically,
tomorrow.
the interlocal can be renewed, I believe it's written in such a way that it can be renewed quite easily. And, but I think that we should take a look at it and make sure that it's still satisfactory. Now, if I can give that to you, I can have that to you by the end of the week, so we can get that procedure started. I don't think, if what you're saying is true, then it's certainly not, we shouldn't wait till the December 1st meeting to have that discussion. We'll have to get that to you guys immediately.
Well, the current one's good, but I would look to the staff to provide us any recommended changes that we've seen operating under that interlocal, if there's been any problems or things we could add to it, and not leave it up to 4 different entities. I'd look to the staff to go, hey, this part of it works great, this part didn't, we need to look at those parts rather than throw it out to 6 different offices and then you get 6 different things back. I think you guys, as our staff and experts, kind of look through that and give us and go, hey, here's the major changes we see, or if there are no changes, then tell us that and say, hey, no changes, it's good as is, and then leave it on us. But I wouldn't just throw it out to us and go, what do you think?
Sure.
Because all our staffs and all our boards have different views on that, and we're going to look to you to go, this is why we need to change this or that. So that's kind of how I envision it happening.
Yep, no trouble at all.
Okay.
Again, our next meeting isn't until December 1st, so with what I'm hearing, you know, I will circulate a draft before the end of October, and then perhaps we can convene a meeting of the Finance Committee, and they can take on that, give me some feedback on that prior to the December 1st meeting. Folks can provide feedback as well via email, and we can hopefully have something that everybody's happy with at the December 1st meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Does that work? Okay.
Thank
And then
you.
just working down that right column.
Sure.
I've never done it, but I've heard getting a 501c3 is not, you know, like ordering something on Amazon either. It
Sure.
takes a while
Absolutely.
even though Amazon slowed down a little bit lately. You know, so what would be the timeline of where we would have to, you know, go through that process of, right, if we chose, when would we need to make that decision to become a 501c3? And then what are the steps and timeline involved if we choose that route, to try and, you know, avoid any gaps in the system? Go ahead.
Yeah, and that also has to be considered that you're dealing with 2 entirely different jurisdictions on corporate structures, legal requirements, federal, state level stuff. So you may keep that in mind, you know. This is not just Florida, so we also
Sure.
have to deal with the Alabama side of how does that occur for Alabama to be structured.
And I can tell you now that that's not necessarily the type of structure that I think you're going to have recommended by staff. But again, at that December 1st meeting, you know, we're going to want to leave that meeting with clear direction on which way we're going to go.
Right, because to his point, you know, being a Florida independent special district doesn't have the word Alabama in it.
No, I know that's challenging. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the TPO is an independent special district as well, and we hope that that'll serve as a template that we can use to successfully use that system of governance.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or questions on the Independence Plan timeline? Okay. Do you need anything else from us, or is
No,
that
I think
enough?
that you nailed the two most challenging things, and so it is important that we get those, that we leave the next meeting with everybody with their marching orders for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. Thank you.
Item C.
This one arrived to me. I may have misrepresented this one, Commissioner Cole. I apologize. Requirements of an MOA, memorandum of agreement with Escambia County, between Escambia County and PPBP. Said to continue to use their environment or natural resources department. I assume that meant laboratory services, but there are other services that I know that we could look at using, so I'm not 100% certain if I captured the spirit of that.
Mr. Chairman, I don't recall anything about specifying laboratory services.
No, that's what I'm saying. You said continue to use their environment or natural resources department.
Okay.
So that's my mistake. But I'm
Well-
not 100% certain what,
Well, they, you know, like Robert Turpin and people like that you have under your wing already, how can we expand this program? And, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. You guys have good people, we've got some good people. Is there a way of having an MOA between the 2 counties, or even bring Alabama into it if they have personnel that can be used for, like the other day, I was coming across the bay on the interstate, and there appeared to be a rather large algae plume out there, bright rust color. I didn't know what it was, but I got Robert Turpin's phone number, so I called Robert. He said, well, what side of the Bay Bridge is it on? I said, well, it's kind of wiggles between Santa Rosa and Escambia County, so he went out and looked at it. So, but it needs to be identified by somebody. So how can we, if we need that type of personnel, we don't need to hire them under this program. So as we're looking at this, can we be considering MOUs to use that type of personnel? Or if it's in Santa Rosa or Escambia, we've got environmental folks. So how do we incorporate them through an MOA in the future as we go forward?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think of Dr. Tanya, our GIS expert. I know she works with you all a lot, but, her resources are huge, and, she's excited to help anyone out when they talk GIS and that. But I think that would be part of, looking to go independent and making sure we just don't hire. In-kind contributions, from the different entities is I think, something to explore.
Mr. Chairman, if I might too, the other thing, it kind of piggybacks on what you brought up at the beginning of the meeting. How do we do a memorandum of understanding for, like, breaking away from HR? I just never, when we started this program, would have never thought about Escambia County's HR department being involved in a decision that I feel this board should make in hiring and stuff. And I certainly appreciate, Escambia County taking the lead on this. They certainly had the wherewithal to do so. But, some of these decisions need to be made by this board, and I would think at this point, start excluding some of Escambia County staff on this.
Well, I mean, Donna, we're not making the decisions on who you hire. I mean, that's left up to you and whoever you determine. It just goes through we advertise it, we, help with the job description, things like that, right? I mean,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. It goes through the Escambia County process, and the hire.
But we're not making, the Escambia County's not making decisions on who to hire.
But yes, the program decides who gets hired, but the search is conducted according to Escambia County procedures. And then the hire ultimately is an Escambia County employee.
At this time, until we.
Right, at this time, yeah.
I've got my concerns, and if we take it and look at this, that Commissioner Peach brought to us, may give us some leeway there on some of those decisions. All right, thank you.
So I think that one is just homework for all of us to bring back with our staffs. And, as I talk to our different folks in our staff, how much they're involved with this, they're excited about it and things. But like I said, in order to avoid redundancy, are there unique things we can all bring to the table to support this program as we move it forward independently, and then, take that next step?
So,
with
Mr.
each
Chairman,
grant round.
if I'm understanding Commissioner Cole, the question is, how can PPBEP staff or the organization access its management partners' resources? Now, that's different from stakeholder resources, but your thought was possibly memorandum of agreements. Okay, I don't know how that, how that works with the interlocal agreement or any of that. So, but that's the real question: is how can we access our management partner resources for this organization? So, okay.
Okay, we'll move on to D. Is that?
Yeah, this was, I think, a good idea, proposing that the organization, the chair, yourself, Commissioner Peach, send a letter to both Senators Rubio and Scott, thanking them for their support, putting forward the legislation to designate the Pensacola and Perdido Bay estuaries as estuaries of national significance.
And then again, I know they're not putting forth the language,
I'd make it
but
four
I don't want to
senators.
leave my
I'll leave four
Alabama
senators.
brethren out and go, as you may be aware, or as I'm sure you're aware, senators from Florida are providing this. We, as the joint thing, would appreciate you supporting your fellow senators in this, and that can't hurt either, because you got 2 senators, from what I understand. If my constitutional history is still good from 50 years ago. Yes, I would amend that to add a letter of request for support, or, excuse me, however we could word it. 4 senators are better than 2.
I would go ahead and include our House members as well
Sure.
that are,
It's just a piece, I'll bring a ream of paper for sure.
Well, I know it would be great to be able to formally reach out to all those representatives and let them know what our goals are and how it may benefit them.
Yep. So, I would hate to leave that till our December meeting to approve the letters. Is there a will of the board to have the letters drafted and then me sign them? We could circulate them for some comments, but I don't want to put it off till December.
So
I'd
moved.
rather get it to them.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if we might have staff, I believe, I'm correct in saying that I believe there's a Alabama congressman that's writing the House side of that, or working on the House side of that. So if staff can specify those people that are like on top of this, and certainly in some language, welcome whoever else will get on board type thing.
Yep.
Y'all are better at wordsmithing than I am, so.
Commissioner Bender?
I think as part of also the letter, we might be able to include some of the recent things that we've done, like our participation in the National Estuary Program, let them know how we're already a part of the community.
Exactly.
Just a thought. Send the letter of appreciation to your 2 Florida senators. CC the others. Add an additional letter to the others saying, attached you will see this letter of appreciation to these for their support. They have done this, da-da-da-da-da-da. We request your support for da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, structure it that way so that it's real clear and simple for us Alabamians.
Commissioner Cole, will you change your motion to include the da-da-da-das?
Like I said, I'm going to learn that wordsmithing real quick. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
I think, I think we understand the intent and look forward to seeing those before, or shortly.
The old military guy in me puts suspenses on things. So when do you guys think you could have those letters out for a draft and get them signed? Because I don't want to send them at Christmas, because we know they're not working at Christmas. So,
Probably the end of next week.
okay. So we'll see drafts the end of next week. If you all just look for those, and then once we do the final edits, I'll be happy to sign them, and we can get them off in the mail.
Perfect. I think that'll be very valuable.
Okay, so that was the motion and the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Awesome. Next.
Okay, page 2, couple of action items. One is remaining from as a follow-up from the last policy board meeting when we worked on community grants. We had one project that was recommended with the Friends of Florida State Parks. The board wanted to see that project adjusted. We took that request to the proponent, and they came back to us and said that they didn't think that that would be feasible because of the current situation with visitors. And so we reached out to the first alternate at the University of South Alabama, which is a researcher there, Ron Baker, who we've worked with in the last cohort. And Professor Baker provided us with an updated budget that brought his project in line with the available funds. And so we have, it's really back to the policy board now. We've got, weren't able to make the adjustments requested, so the proponent asked that we put the project forward again. So the policy board has a choice to make between the original signage project with the Florida State Parks, Friends of Florida State Parks, or the oyster reef monitoring for fish populations from the University of South Alabama. So really putting it to you as sort of a one or the other, and have both in line to spend the remaining funds out of the appropriation.
Okay. My initial question is I scanned the South Alabama one. It's talking about East and Escambia Bays. I think I see it in here, or saw it as I was scanning it real quick. Again, sorry for being late, but does this complement, compete with, or totally separate from the big $20 million Nature Conservancy Oyster Rescue? Because they talked about fish monitoring going on for 5 years. They're already funded for. Is this, can anyone tell me, is this part of that? Is this complementary to that, or is it two separate efforts? I just don't want to duplicate something or
Yeah.
step on the Nature Conservancy.
He actually had their input from the first round. He had Beth Fugate in the room, also the folks from TNC. So we've been all working together to decide, selecting sites and those types of things. This is really meant to be a baseline of monitoring, so then when those reefs are actually fully constructed, they could continue with their planned monitoring. But this also is other reef locations outside of those locations. So I think there were about 15, 20 sites that he visited. So it's in complementary. It's not double duty.
Commissioner Bender?
Discussion, I like the South Alabama one. I think to get a baseline, it's no better than the present. And so I would, again, I think that's going to go further in our objectives and what we're trying to accomplish. So I would move the South Alabama proposal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the South Alabama project receiving the final grant award, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
That's what that's on.
We have a selection.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Look forward to seeing the results at next year's Grant Symposium. Next item is an annual budget. So I have provided you with an overview of where we were in terms of revenue and expenses, again, as of September 17th, when this was prepared, and as well a proposed budget for 2021-2022, which includes funding which is secured and with the local government contributions still to come, but with a number that I hope that is secured, and then how we expect to spend those funds through the year. And I did, even as Commissioner Peach mentioned earlier, it is important to highlight that next year's budget won't be quite so robust if we don't get very proactive with our local government contributions and continue to go after competitive grant funding, as well as our primary goal, which is National Estuary Program designation. But of course, that will take time, the NEP designation. So we certainly can't put all our eggs in that basket. In terms of sort of what we need to function, this budget, this $1.5 million budget, includes significant, subcontractor awards. It includes our community grant program, and a significant amount of infrastructure around office equipment, field equipment, and so we do have we have significant human resources costs. We now have an office space, so we do need sort of $500,000 to $600,000 to function at our current level without any programming, and so that would be the magic number to ensure as little disruption as possible next fiscal year. Now we will have 3 months of the next fiscal year, October, November, nope, just 2, pardon me, 2 months funded in the next fiscal year as well. So that's good from the EPA grant. But all that is to say, this is the annual budget that I'm putting forward for this year, and that we do need to make it a priority to ensure that we've got a healthy budget for next year. These numbers were taken from our grant, the three awards that are listed, and so the expenses are taken directly from those awards.
Mr. Chairman, a question for Donald.
Go ahead.
A couple of them, actually. Donald, can you define what is included in local government contributions? And that's on the revenue side.
Yep.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, the right-hand column is your proposed budget for the 2022, fiscal year 2022? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're proposing, of course, the remainder of the Restore grant for 2022, which is 1.183?
There'll be some left over again as of conclusion.
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm understanding what I'm reading here.
Yep. The local government contributions are made up of $25,000 each from Escambia and Santa Rosa County and $5,000 from the city of Pensacola. That's what I hope to receive from those three governments.
Okay. And then down in the expenses and operating expenses, what is included under other contractual services? What is that? That's a big number of contracted services.
Yes, so when we did the EPA amendment, we added a lot of contractual services. So we have seagrass monitoring, freshwater monitoring, estuarine water monitoring. We have an oyster film documentary. As well in there is likely made up of also things like CCMP design and website design. So those numbers are all packaged into other contractual services, as well as like Emerson's time is in there from the Trash Free Waters grant, because technically he's on contractual service. So there is a lot of items in there, for sure.
Where are these details located that we may be
In
able to
each
look at them?
individual grant application, each individual grant award.
No, I'm talking about for the budget. I would like to make a decision on this. I trust you. I understand
Certainly.
you're packaging everything, but I'd like to know what others are what at what level of expense
Certainly.
in order to take that back to the commissioner who I'm representing.
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem, Dan. I can get that done for you quite quickly. I don't have it at my fingertips, unfortunately. But yeah, that number is pulled from numbers that exist and are pretty easy for me to get. And I can send out. Let's see what else people would like to see. But I can send out an updated version in the morning for sure.
Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your budget, the Florida state appropriation, that's already secured? Or is that an estimate?
I think I have that right. Yeah, I mean it's been secured for
Okay,
the fiscal years are a little bit different.
sure.
But that's what we're spending, like, that's what we just awarded in community grants.
No, this is in your revenue stream. So
Yeah.
that goes directly to community grants.
That's right, that's, yeah, absolutely. So under community grant awards, there's 280,000 listed, and that's because the Trash Free Waters program has $30,000 for grant awards to local businesses.
All right. And you mentioned three governments. Does Baldwin County not participate?
We don't have any funding secured yet from Baldwin County. We did reach out to state senator for some discretional funding, but that didn't work out. And yeah, we're not expecting any dollars from Baldwin County this fiscal year.
And I agree that I'd like to see a breakdown on the contractual services. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there any other questions on the budget other than, and you're just going to give us a list of all the contracts and what they're costing and kind of roughly what they do?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other questions? This is an action item. Sounds like we need more detail before we take action. So what's the drawback of not adopting this today? Does it impact us for October 1st? I think it would.
Well, yeah, the grant awards are all signed and approved by the recipient. So we're not not looking, the bylaws dictate that there be a budget approved by the board for the fiscal year. You know, so I don't expect we'll grind to a halt, but I also don't want to put us in a position where we do.
Okay. So I guess just roughly too then, are all those contractual services underway, or do they start on 1 October?
Well, again, many of those are subject to the approval of the EPA amendment. When we approved that budget at the last meeting, that included the majority of those contractual services. Those that aren't included in the EPA amendment are included in the Trash-Free Waters program, which has already been approved by this board and the BCC. So none of them, they're all slated to be distributed this coming fiscal year. So none of them have been awarded as of yet, or even the process has begun to award them. It's just where the money's going, so that the top line and the bottom line are, so you guys can see where the money's going to go.
Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Emerson is connected to our network at the moment. I know these contracts were submitted to the EPA for the budget amendment approval, so we could pull those up if that's something the board feels they need to see today. There are a few elements that are time sensitive since they are contracts. It'll take quite some time to get them through the county, so the sooner we could start the process, the better.
So the will of the board, you want to take a look at them, or?
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd take a little while to digest, those contracts and make a determination. I'd move forward with the approval of the budget contingent on, we could always come back next month if there's something on there that we don't understand, maybe send an email out and ask for a better explanation in the next meeting to clarify, but I'd be okay with going ahead. There's really the only question item, and that's contractual services, and if we just flat out don't like something, we can cancel contract.
Absolutely. And again, you did look at the majority of them, the large majority of those dollars at the last meeting and approve them as part of that EPA draft budget.
So,
Okay. Are we good? You want to make a motion on that then, Commissioner Cole?
yeah, I move to accept the budget and ask for review of the contractual services. Do so.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, budget is approved with that request for more detail.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go into committee updates. Technical committee?
Hi there, this is Jessica Fibza. Can you guys hear me? Oops.
We got you, Jessica.
Okay, good, cool. Yeah, I know it's been a long and probably exhausting meeting already, so I'll try to go through the technical committee update fairly quickly. So we met yesterday, and I think Whitney, in her technical update, provided somewhat of a high-level overview of some of what we covered. But we had 32 participants. We continue to have really good participation and representation of stakeholders from the community in the technical committee. So really glad that folks are still very engaged. We walked through the draft action plan, really focusing on 3 of the goals that we didn't get to at the last meeting. Sediment, habitat, including oysters, seagrass, marshes, and wetlands, as well as fish and wildlife. I didn't want to get into a lot of the details of what we covered, but as Whitney reported, she received a lot of feedback from the initial draft that she submitted and was sharing those edits with us, giving us an opportunity to provide feedback. She is going to be working on a second draft of the action plan, where again, the technical committee will have an opportunity to further refine that document and provide additional input. Whitney did queue up for us what she mentioned to you all. The next step will be setting performance metrics and doing some target setting for restoration, trying to set some short-term and long-term goals and targets. Rather than kind of putting it out and having a call with 32 people trying to work through that, we're going to break into smaller groups and a combination of self-identified and staff-identified participants for those smaller working groups. Just kind of a, part of the meeting, we have been really focused on this action plan, so haven't really been keeping up with having as many of the updates on kind of the behind the scenes activities such as you all heard today, but it was actually really great. We got updates on branding, some of the project updates, the grant updates, the symposium that y'all heard about too. So again, the committee continues to be really excited about a lot of the other activities going on with the estuary program. We did, when we were talking about the habitat and the seagrass, we did have a little bit more of a detailed conversation on the importance of seagrass and some of the issues that have been coming up in the community regarding dredging around boat ramps. And so I think you all can, in the future, keep an eye out. I think the technical committee is, again, as our fact-finding mission as a body, we're going to put together a document for you all just about the importance and value of seagrass and impacts of dredging in those habitats. And maybe trying to get other associated entities like the Marine Advisory Committee and whatnot involved in some of that seagrass conversations. So those were the notes that I had that I wanted to share with you all. Whitney, is there anything that I missed that you want to add?
I think you covered it. Under the technical committee, you wanted to go over quick oyster subcommittee updates. So we have another subcommittee and we've had our second meeting. This was at the end of August. We had a really good showing. We actually did an in-person evening meeting. So some of the fishermen were able to attend the meeting as well. This is kind of how the Nature Conservancy did their workshops back when they were doing the management plans. We decided to adopt in every other meeting, one being in the evening and one being during the day. So we can make sure that we get wide participation from folks. We did select co-chairs. Beth Fugate from DEP and Christopher Lindy are co-chairs of that committee. So they'll be helping me kind of prep for future meetings and discussing, agendas, what we're going to talk about, what the priorities of the committee will be. And then Ann Birch gave a presentation on a pilot oyster restoration project concept that she's been working on with the Nature Conservancy, Fish and Wildlife Service, and potentially our program, obviously, as well. This being a multi-site, multi-objective type plan, so looking at the bigger scheme of things, how do we get this done in a shorter amount of time? Kind of wanting to create a vision map using outputs from the habitat suitability model that's been built and the ecosystem service model. So kind of taking all of that data and putting it to good use and trying to figure out what sites would be best for habitat creation or ecosystem services or the like. So that's kind of just in the starting phases of planning. We hope to have, a stakeholder-driven process, and there was some good discussion on potential funding sources for a big task like this. So that was exciting. And then Logan kind of asked for input on future oyster video or documentary that had been, expressed by technical committee members and members from the stakeholder working group that developed the oyster management plan. So we kind of just went over potential, things we'd like to cover in that, people we want to interview, that type of thing. So that will be an exciting opportunity if we get that. And then the East Bay Oyster Restoration Project update was also given, which you guys got a better update from the Lunch and Learn. It was similar, just gave a quick update. So our next meeting will be at the end of October, October 28th, and that'll be back to the daytime meeting. So we've had really good participation, and we've already hit the ground running on trying to implement some of these things from the management plan. So we're excited.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Whitney. Education Committee?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right, great. This is Chastity. As you know, most of what we have been doing for the past month was getting ready for National Estuaries Week, and Logan did a great job updating you guys. I just wanted to give some serious kudos to the team, especially Logan. The week went off without a hitch. It was, some really well-attended, excellent outreach and education opportunities throughout the week. And I know we signed up a lot of folks just in the short time that I was volunteering at the Seafood Fest. And also the symposium, for those of you that weren't able to attend, was really well attended. It was well run, really good presentations. I just thought the whole thing went really well, and I wanted to give some major kudos to Logan and the rest of the team. The other thing, only other update I wanted to give is a couple weeks from now, we will be meeting with some folks from the Scientists in Every Florida Classroom, or excuse me, Every Florida School, which is a program through the Thompson Earth Systems Institute. Is a pretty well established program that has already done a lot of curriculum development and making, excuse me, connections with all of the Florida school districts. So we're going to be meeting with them in a couple weeks to hopefully talk about a partnership with them, and that would really significantly help us to begin to build that K-12 education program, since a lot of it has been done. So we're really looking forward to that in a couple weeks, and I'll be able to update you guys at the next meeting about how that went. And then also, just so you know, on the Alabama side, I know Logan has been already talking with folks in the Baldwin County Master Environmental Educator Program, which is very, very similar to the Scientists in Every Florida School program. So we're kind of working, each school district has different benchmarks that they're aiming for. And so we're kind of working on both sides of the state line there to begin to develop that K-12 education program. So more on that later. But again, I just want to end with major kudos to Logan for all the hard work. It was a great week.
Thanks, Chastity. I think we're all Logan fans with the work she put in on that week, because I can tell you there's folks in Santa Rosa County that know about this program, and I haven't told them. So I know you're getting out there and reaching them. So appreciate it. Thank you, Chastity. Business Partnership Committee update?
Yeah, unfortunately, after that, which was wonderful, and it was a great week, on a less positive note, we did have Holly Benson, we hoped was going to chair this committee. She has stepped away from that, and so we are back to the drawing board with the Business Partnership Committee, and the plan now is to take a bottom-up approach and identify interested businesses and get them together in the early new year and really try and have it take shape from that. Rather than have somebody chair it. Well, we hope to get interested businesses together and have them select a chair and a vice chair. So an unfortunate bit of news, but that's the update from the Business Partnership Committee.
Have you reached out to the chambers yet?
I have, yes. It's interesting. I reached out to them quite some time ago, and responses are still filtering back. I sent them out. I was looking for opportunities to address their chambers and also potential members of the Business Partnership Committee, and it's amazing. I'm still getting responses. Actually got one today from the Pensacola Beach Chamber. They invited me out in October to speak at one of their breakfast events. So I have reached out to the chambers and will continue to try and build those relationships.
Okay, because if you need help with the Santa Rosa County Chamber, I've spoke to their economic development group before. Donna Tucker's very interested, you know, had a lot of great small businesses there. They work with Florida First Partners. So, yeah, I would just be aggressive with going with after those bigger chambers. And if you need help getting on any of their calendars, all you gotta do is ask us. They ask me to come on their calendar all the time, so.
What are you saying about Pensacola Beach Chamber?
No, I didn't say about Pensacola.
Oh, okay.
There are quite a number of
I
chambers.
said the Santa Rosa County. Right,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
would
there's a
focus on the
bunch of
big
chambers,
ones.
Yeah, which I need to get better at.
I
for
would
sure.
tell you the first one, I think, and Commissioner Cole could tell me if I'm wrong, but I would go after the Santa Rosa County Chamber. Right off
Good.
the snap, and get with Donna Tucker, because they've, you know, I think I spoke 2 or 3 times to them in the last 2 months, different groups they have put together, so,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
another option is go to Navarre, because if you can get one, the other will get jealous. And
There
Yeah,
you
that's
go.
true. We got 2 down there. So it's a target-rich environment.
It is.
But yeah, I would keep pushing that, because I think getting the businesses involved is key. So, you know, the more aggressive I think you can get with the chambers, the better. They all have executive directors and you know, get out there and get at them, you know. I'd hate to push it off 3-4 more months, because I think the business partnership is going to be a key aspect of getting folks into this, so.
Yeah, it's a good time to do it, you know, over the next quarter or two, because
Yeah.
we do look, our look is improved. Obviously, our programming is top-notch, and we've got a lot of good things to say.
Yeah, so December update, if you can just kind of tell us, and like I said, if you need help in any of the Santa Rosa County chambers, give me a call. I'll meet you to introduce you to the executive directors if need be.
That'd be
And
great.
just kind of give us an update in the December meeting of which chambers you talked to and what their temperature was, if you will, at least from
That
our
sounds great.
side.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any updates or agency updates from policy board members or any of our partner agencies? None? Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to address this board? Okay, it's about a year, right, Donald, you've been with us?
It'll be a year on December 2nd.
All right, so I'm gonna give you some homework.
Yeah, next meeting will be a year.
Well, I do this to all our new folks.
Oh, absolutely. It's good, feels good.
Have 3 things you're super proud of and 3 things you feel you could do better. And let this board know we made the right decision, and if there's nothing you're not proud of or feel you could do better, I'm sure you'll get some input from this boisterous group. So I think, are we required to give you, and I'm just going through this with our county administrators as a chair, are we required or in your contract to give you a written evaluation, or is there any requirement for that? I don't.
Certainly, you're the body that evaluates me.
Okay, so is there, but I mean, we typically send out, like, we go out to our board for our county administrator once a year. We fill out a form. Do we have anything like that in our bylaws? I'm not familiar with.
It is in the bylaws that I am evaluated once a year by the
Okay.
board.
So-
I don't think that there's a ton of detail around how it's done,
Okay,
but I can double check that. Actually, I have them right here.
yep,
so either this or this.
yeah. Or, so we will give you, we'll all come back and have some input for you for our December meeting, since it's December 2nd, but I'm going to let you lead it off with, tell us how great you are and tell us where you need help or what you can do better.
Right
Fair?
now?
No,
Oh, in the
December
meeting.
1st.
Yeah, okay, that seems
I'll give you
reasonable.
some time
It's
to,
a little more,
I'll give you some time to put some thought into it.
I appreciate that.
And then we'll give you our evaluation after you tell us. How's that?
All right, I look forward to it.
Okay, is that fair enough with the board? Awesome. Is there any other? The next meeting here?
We had discussed doing it in Orange Beach, but can take feedback from the board.
Any-
Currently, I have everything reserved.
Okay,
And
it's time.
NOB for the meeting, but, you know, if there's,
Sounds like Orange Beach.
all right, sounds good.
Another luncheon also?
Yeah, are we gonna have lunch?
Still working on the luncheon.
I'll talk to Philip, he'll make gumbo if I ask.
December 1?
Is that up 1 December?
December 1, yeah.
in Orange Beach? Awesome. Look forward to seeing you all there. If there's no other business, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.